welcome to DCF Investigations. Los Angeles, 1949. A city of blinding contrasts. By day, the California sun bleached the stucco walls of Spanish-style bungalows and glinted off the chrome of convertibles cruising down Sunset Boulevard. It was the golden era of Hollywood, a time when the studio system was God, and thousands of young women flocked to the coast with dreams of silver screen immortality. But when the sun dipped below the horizon, the city of angels transformed. Shadows stretched long and deep across the hills of Griffith Park. The neon lights of nightclubs flickered with promises of fame and vice, and the sprawling metropolis became a labyrinth of secrets. It was a noir film come to life. But for one young woman, the danger was not scripted, and the ending would never be filmed. Lana, this is the story of a beauty who walked out of her home into the cool October twilight and simply vanished into the ether, leaving behind only a broken purse and a cryptic note that has baffled detectives for over 75 years. Tonight, we open the files on one of the most enduring mysteries in Hollywood history. This is the disappearance of Jean Spangler. To truly understand the gravity of this case, we must first step back and examine the life of the woman at its center. Jean Elizabeth Spangler was born on September 2nd, 1923, in Seattle, Washington. She was not just a statistic. She was a vibrant, ambitious 26-year-old woman navigating the complex social strata of post-war America. By the late 1940s, Jean was living in Los Angeles and residing at an apartment complex on Colgate Avenue in the Park La Brea area. She lived with her mother, Florence, her 5-year-old daughter, Christine, and her brother's wife, Sophie. Jean was striking, with the kind of classic, photogenic beauty that turned heads. She had worked as a dancer at the Earl Carroll Theater and as a model, eventually landing bit parts in Hollywood productions. She appeared in films like When My Baby Smiles at Me and Chicken Every Sunday. However, she was not a star. She was one of the countless working actors living on the periphery of fame, striving for that one big break that would elevate her from an extra to a leading lady. Her personal life was just as dramatic as the roles she auditioned for. Jean had been married to a plastics manufacturer named Dexter Benner. Their relationship was volatile and marked by intense arguments and a bitter divorce that was finalized in 1946. The dissolution of their marriage sparked a contentious custody battle over their daughter, Christine. In the 1940s, custody battles were often scandalous and heavily favored the mother. Yet Dexter Benner had fought hard, alleging that Jean was unfit. Jean eventually regained custody, but the tension between the two remained a palpable undercurrent in her life. This friction is a critical piece of the puzzle, providing a backdrop of domestic stress that cannot be ignored when analyzing her disappearance. The timeline of the disappearance begins on Friday, October 7th, 1949. It was a day that seemed ordinary in every respect. The weather was typical for early autumn in Los Angeles, cooling down as the afternoon wore on. Around 5 o'clock in the evening, Jean prepared to leave her apartment on Colgate Avenue. Her movements were deliberate, and she seemed to have a clear itinerary for the evening. She dressed with the care of someone expecting to be seen. She wore a smart outfit consisting of a skirt and a jacket. But the details that would later become crucial were her accessories. She slipped into a new pair of shoes with ankle straps and donned a 3/4-length coat. She did not take a car. Instead, she planned to rely on the city's public transportation or perhaps a ride she had arranged. Before walking out the door, Jean spoke to her sister-in-law, Sophie. She offered a specific explanation for her departure. Jean stated that she was going to meet her ex-husband, Dexter Benner, to discuss a late child support payment. Money was tight, and the support was necessary for the care of young Christine. Following this meeting, Jean claimed she had a work engagement. She told Sophie she was needed on a film set for a night shoot. This was not entirely unusual for an actress, as night shoots were common. But it is a detail that investigators would later scrutinize heavily. Jean said she would be home late, closed the door, and walked away from the apartment complex. She was never seen by her family again. The first few hours after her departure passed without alarm. Sophie and Jean's mother, Florence, who was out of town at the time visiting family in Kentucky, were accustomed to Jean's irregular schedule. However, as the sun rose on Saturday, October 8th, and Jean had not returned, anxiety began to set in. Sophie knew that Jean was a devoted mother who would not abandon Christine. By the time Sunday rolled around, the silence was deafening. Sophie, now deeply concerned, went to the police to file a missing person report. The initial police response was standard for the era. Adult disappearances were often treated with a degree of skepticism attributed to romantic flings or voluntary relocation. However, the circumstances of John's life, the custody battle, the Hollywood connection, and the child left behind, raised red flags. The Los Angeles Police Department began to retrace her steps. They immediately checked with the studios and the Screen Extras Guild to verify her claim about a night shoot. The response was chilling. There were no studio records indicating that Jean Spangler was hired for work on the night of October 7th. No film sets were expecting her. This revelation shattered her alibi and suggested that Jean had lied to her sister-in-law. Why would she invent a work engagement? Was it to cover up a clandestine meeting? Or had she been deceived by someone posing as a casting director? A common predator tactic in Hollywood. The investigation shifted into high gear on October 9th, 2 days after she vanished. A worker in Griffith Park, a massive urban wilderness in the heart of Los Angeles, made a discovery that would turn the case into a sensation. Near the Ferndale entrance of the park, a rugged and somewhat secluded area known for its ferns and walking paths, the worker found a purse. It was a double-handled purse, and one of the straps was torn loose, suggesting a struggle. The purse was identified as belonging to Jean Spangler. The contents of the purse were meticulously cataloged by detectives, and they painted a confusing picture. Inside, there was no money. If this was a robbery, the motive seemed clear. Yet the purse itself had not been discarded in a trash bin, but left in a somewhat open area of the park. However, the most haunting item found inside was a small, handwritten note. The note was unfinished, scrawled on a piece of paper, and it read, "Kirk, can't wait any longer, going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way, while Mother is away." This note is the single most important piece of evidence in the Jean Spangler case, and every phrase has been analyzed for decades. Let us break it down. The name Kirk immediately sparked a media frenzy. At the time, John had recently completed a bit part in the film Young Man with a Horn, starring the rising legend Kirk Douglas. The press went wild with speculation. Was John having an affair with a Hollywood star? Kirk Douglas, upon hearing the news, actually called the police himself. He was currently in Palm Springs and stated that he did know Jean, but only slightly, and had not seen her recently. He claimed he was not the Kirk in the note, Police cleared him of any direct involvement, but the connection added a layer of celebrity intrigue that kept the story on the front pages. The second part of the note, going to see Dr. Scott, launched a massive manhunt for any physician with that surname. The phrase, "It will work best this way, while mother is away," provided a dark context. John's mother, Florence, was indeed away in Kentucky. This phrasing strongly implied that whatever Jean was doing, she wanted to keep it a secret from her mother. In 1949, one of the few medical procedures a young woman would be desperate to hide from a conservative mother was an abortion. At the time, abortion was illegal and highly dangerous, often performed in back alleys or by doctors operating in the shadows. The theory emerged that Jean was pregnant and seeking an abortion. The urgency of "can't wait any longer" supports this hypothesis. If she was seeking an illegal procedure, Dr. Scott might have been a pseudonym for an abortionist or a referral she had been given. Detectives scoured Los Angeles for every doctor, dentist, and veterinarian named Scott. They interviewed them all. None admitted to knowing Jean Spangler or having an appointment with her. They checked the address books of known abortionists, and they raided clinics suspected of illegal practices. Despite the exhaustive dragnet, the mysterious Dr. Scott was never identified. We must also look at the other man in John's narrative. Her ex-husband, Dexter Benner. Jean had told Sophie she was meeting him. Police brought Benner in for questioning. He flatly denied seeing Jean that night. He claimed he had been with his new wife all evening. His alibi was corroborated by his wife, which, while legally significant, is often viewed with skepticism in domestic cases. Benner admitted that he and Jean had argued over money in the past, but he insisted he had nothing to do with her disappearance. With no physical evidence tying him to the crime scene and a corroborated alibi, police could not hold him. Yet, the timing remained suspicious. Jean told her family she was meeting him. And if she lied about the film shoot, did she also lie about meeting Dexter? Or did she meet him and things went wrong? As the weeks turned into months, the investigation widened, dragging in the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles nightlife. Jean was known to frequent the Sunset strip clubs. She was a party girl in the parlance of the time, enjoying the social scene. This lifestyle brought her into the orbit of dangerous men. Police received tips connecting Jean to associates of Mickey Cohen, the notorious mob boss who ruled the Los Angeles underworld. Some reports suggested she had been seen in Palm Springs with Davey Ogle and Frank Nicolai, two of Cohen's henchmen. Interestingly, Ogle and Nicolai also disappeared around the same time Jean did. Ogle was under indictment for conspiracy, and there were rumors that the mob had helped them escape to Mexico or that they had been liquidated to prevent them from talking. Could Jean have been swept up in a mob hit? Perhaps she was the girlfriend of one of these men and was taken along or eliminated because she knew too much. Sightings of Jean were reported in El Paso, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona, often in the company of men matching the descriptions of Ogle and Nicolai. One witness in El Paso claimed to have seen a woman matching John's description in a customs office, looking frightened. However, like so many leads in missing persons cases, these sightings could never be substantiated. The mob connection is a tantalizing theory that explains the complete lack of a body. As the mafia was expert at making people disappear permanently, another shadow looming over this case is the ghost of the Black Dahlia. Elizabeth Short had been brutally murdered in Los Angeles just 2 years prior, in 1947. The cases shared eerie similarities. Both were young, dark-haired women trying to make it in Hollywood. Both frequented the same nightclubs. Both had complex personal lives. The media was quick to draw parallels, wondering if a serial killer was stalking aspiring actresses. While there is no direct evidence linking the two crimes, the proximity in time and location created a climate of fear in the city. The LAPD, still stinging from their failure to solve the Dahlia case, was under immense pressure to find Jean. Let us return to the forensic limitations of 1949. There were no security cameras to track Jean's movements down Wilshire Boulevard. There was no GPS in her purse to ping her location. DNA testing did not exist. Fingerprinting was advanced, but required a suspect for comparison or a clean print from the scene. The purse found in Griffith Park was handled by the park worker before police arrived, potentially compromising evidence. The torn strap suggested violence, perhaps a snatch and grab or a struggle as she was being abducted. But without blood or a body, forensic science could offer little more than speculation. The investigation relied almost entirely on shoe leather detective work, knocking on doors, interviewing witnesses, and following paper trails. In the years that followed, the theories continued to evolve. One prevalent theory focuses on the botched abortion angle. If Jean died during an illegal procedure, the practitioner would have been desperate to dispose of the body to avoid a murder charge. This would explain why she was never found. The purse in the park could have been planted to divert attention, to make it look like a random attack. The note, perhaps, was left in the purse by mistake. Or maybe Jean left it there intentionally as a failsafe, hoping someone would find it if she didn't return. The phrase, "can't wait any longer," speaks to the time-sensitive nature of a pregnancy. We must also consider the possibility of a random predator. Los Angeles was a growing city with a transient population. A woman waiting for a bus or walking alone at night was vulnerable. The Kirk in the note could have been a man she met at a bar, someone who used a fake name to lure her in. The doctor on Scott's story could have been a ruse Jean told herself or her family to justify meeting a new lover. However, the specificity of the note suggests a plan, not a random encounter. Jean's family never gave up hope, but they were left with a void that could never be filled. Her mother, Florence, passed away without ever knowing what happened to her daughter. Christine, John's daughter, grew up in the shadow of this mystery. Dexter Benner eventually gained full custody of Christine, and she was raised in his household. The psychological toll on the family was immense. To have a loved one vanish is a unique kind of torture. There is no funeral, no grave, no closure, just an endless series of questions. Decades passed. Files gathered dust in the archives of the LAPD. Every few years, a cold case unit would review the evidence. In the 21st century, internet sleuths and amateur detectives began to pore over the details online, bringing fresh eyes to the old clues. They analyzed the handwriting, mapped the locations, and debated the mob connections. Yet, no smoking gun has ever emerged. The purse remains the only physical link to Jean's last moments. It is fascinating to compare the police work of 1949 with what would happen today. If Jean disappeared now, her smartphone would provide a digital footprint of her location. Her text messages would reveal the identity of Kirk. CCTV cameras on Colgate Avenue would show who she got into a car with. Automatic license plate readers would track that vehicle. DNA from the purse strap could identify her attacker. But Jean lived in an analog world. Behind her secrets were swallowed by the silence of a pre-digital age. There is a tragic irony in Jean Spangler's story. She came to Hollywood to be seen, to have her face projected on screens across the world. In a twisted way, she achieved a level of fame that far surpassed her acting career. She became a legend of the macabre, a cautionary tale of the dark side of Tinseltown. Her face, frozen in black and white publicity photos, haunts the history of Los Angeles. She is the eternal starlet, forever young, forever waiting for a meeting that will never happen. So, where does the truth lie? Was she the victim of a jealous ex-husband who hired a hitman? Did she die on the table of an incompetent back-alley doctor who disposed of her remains in the desert? Was she swept away by the mob to a new life or a shallow grave in Mexico? Or was Kirk a predator who lured her into the darkness of Griffith Park? The note remains the key. Kirk, Dr. Scott, Mother is away. It reads like a riddle designed to taunt us. The urgency in her handwriting is palpable. She was a woman taking control of a difficult situation, making a choice that she thought would work best. She walked into the night with a plan, but someone else had a different ending in mind. Today, the Jean Spangler case remains open. It is one of the oldest active missing persons cases in the state of California. The Los Angeles Police Department has never officially closed the file, though the chances of solving it now, with all primary witnesses and suspects long dead, are infinitesimally small. Yet, we tell her story. We tell it to remember that behind the mystery was a mother, a daughter, a woman who laughed and cried and dreamed. We tell it because somewhere, in a dusty basement or a forgotten diary, the answer might still exist. As we conclude this deep dive into the shadows of 1949, we are left with a chilling image of a torn purse lying in the ferns of Griffith Park, a silent witness to a crime we can only imagine. The lights of Los Angeles still twinkle in the distance, indifferent to the secrets buried beneath the concrete. This has been a production of DCF Investigations. We have walked the timeline, examined the evidence, and profiled the suspects. Now, we turn the investigation over to you. What is your theory on the Kirk note? Do you believe the mob connection, or was this a domestic tragedy hidden in plain sight? And who was the mysterious Dr. Scott? Leave your thoughts, your theories, and your analysis in the comments below. The discussion continues there. Until next time, stay observant and remember that the truth is often stranger and darker than fiction.